Have the car home by midnight.
But Dad!
I said midnight.
Okay people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Today we're taking a look at the Bandai Warhammer 40,000 Ultramarines Primaris Intercessor. Okay. To get this out of the way first, I know nothing about Warhammer 40k or 40,000. In fact, expect a whole heap and helping of Robo Don't Know during this review. This was one of those figures that was visually interesting. I wanted to see what Bandai was going to do with it. Curiosity got the better of me. What can I say? I only got this because it's a neat looking action figure. That's it. So cut me some slack. I'm just going to look at it from a action figure, articulation, sculpt, paint aspect, not a, well, this is completely accurate to the source material of Warhammer 40,000. Because I don't know, and I'm good with that. Looking at the package, when I opened up the box, I didn't expect a package this big. I'm wondering how much of this is actually figure. But you get a picture of the figure on the front, big red sticker, get Bandai action figure information. Ultramarines, Primaris Intercessor. A side view of the figure. On the back, some action poses of the figure with the knife, with the gun, standing there badass. On the other side of the figure, there's a Roman numeral 3. Oh, what was on the other side? Oh, whatever that is. On the top, I don't think this is the actual figure. I think this is, well, of course it's not. It's got way too much detail. Not saying the figure's not detailed, just saying that that looks more like a drawing or a rendering. On the bottom, the warnings, the UPC, this is not a toy. But let's get this open, get the plastic wrap off of it, get the box open, and see what's going on here. It's like unwrapping a present, but you already know what's inside because the wrapper's clear. What kind of sorcery is going on here? Oh, it's a slip cover, and there's actual action figure packaging underneath, and I knew the figure wasn't as big as the box. But ooh, that's fancy. Slip cover, some kind of gold foil inside the packaging. It looks like the accessories are way back there. Same look to the rest of the packaging though. Oh well, there's the back of the figure. I knew the original specs for this figure, but with the slip cover and the box and everything, it's kind of misleading. The figure's not as big as the packaging leads you to believe. And there's quite a bit of air in here. And getting the figure out and messing with it, there's been some joy and then some gnashing of teeth. It's definitely not because it's a bad figure. I just think Bandai made some choices that are kind of smart, but at the same time, it'll downright annoy you. But looking at the overall sculpt, it is an imposing looking figure. It's bulky, it's broad, it's got some heft to it. And while it's not as big as I thought it would be, or it's not as big as I had built up in my mind, especially getting the box and thinking, oh, that's a big figure. Oh, no, it's not. It's still quite a bruiser of an action figure. All the sculpt is nicely done. It's crisp, it's sharp all the way around. You can see from the crest on the chest, it's just a nice sculpt. The ribbed suit under the armor parts, I'm guessing that's a ribbed suit under armor parts. Even those, a subtle little detail all in black that you can't see unless you get some light right in it. But those are symmetrical, beautiful looking. I know that's a weird thing to say about something that you barely see under all this awesome armor, but there it is. The shaping, the smoothness, it's just, I don't know. There's something about this. Even to me, who knows nothing about this property, the armor is just a great design. And while the paint is cleanly done, I love the base blue plastic. That's what I wanted most of all out of this. That's what grabbed me in the pictures. I thought, ooh, look how deep that blue is. And the shade work looks like it was done with an actual airbrush. It runs along the edges around. You see the shading underneath the torso there. Runs across the belt buckle. It's just in all the right places. It's down under the knee pad where shading would be. This is sticking out. The light. You know how shadows are cast. The sculpt is fantastic, but the shading gives it some depth. Even more depth, I should say. The detail painting, like the 3 and the arrow, and then on the other side, whatever this symbol is, it's punched in cleanly. The gold is metallic. It has a nice sheen to it. And that contrasting against the matte blue and the black in parts, it just sets it off. But most of all, the red eyes peer out from that blue, from that gold, from that design work, and it gives it a little bit of sinister look. It's tough looking. That's on top of the bulkiness of the body. You just look at the red eyes and think, oh, I don't want to run into this guy in a dark alley. I do have some blemishes, like right here. It almost feels like a mar in the plastic. Also a little bit right here, that's more finish though, I think. And while I'll sing the praises of this shade work again, the black running around the edges, I don't know, it almost makes the blue feel a little bit plain where it's not applied. It almost feels like it needs to run along the seam lines in places. I almost forgot that there is also some gray paint running on some hose right there and then on the earpiece. Just another color to separate it out. Oh, I hate to even gripe about joints being tight, but there's a couple places here that is almost too tight. It's kind of scary. Let's see if I can get it to pop out. You can see that there's some neck there, and it's not that causing the oh well, maybe that is causing some squeakiness. But down at the feet, you know how you can usually stand a figure up and kind of position it with the feet down? That's nearly impossible here. Once it's been in a position for a minute or two, it seems to lock into that position. You have to work the foot loose again. This is holding up the whole figure, so I can't gripe about it being tight. It's just not as smooth as I would hope. But it does give you a nice range all the way around, which we'll look at. But one of my major gripes, and it may not be a major problem, but this had me cussing the most. You mess with the arms, you bring them around, and you're gonna pop the shoulder pad off at some point. I don't know if they did that on purpose to keep you from breaking this, but every time it pops off, you have to figure out where the hell it goes on again. Stick it on. I wanted to not glue that before this to show you it doing that, but this will definitely get glued as soon as I'm done with this review. I also had this come off. You saw that it wasn't a light pop, but I was messing with the arms, trying to extend it as far as it'll go, and that came apart. But it is all ball joints. You put it together, it does stay. I mean, see, it doesn't fall off. We're not running into a, oh my God, the Mafex Wolverine sucks because the arm comes off. This is, it almost feels like it was meant to do that. Oh, and it's got the same kind of sleeve system. There we go. Elbow pad. You can do this. Take that off. Again, ball joint gives you nice range. That gives you a butterfly forward. Does that rotate on that? No, that's looks. You know, there's just a hinge right there. A hinge, then a hinge up inside under the shoulder pad. That gets you out of the way. Also, I have no clue what's going on with the hips. There seems to be a ball joint and a ball joint and then a swivel. That's the cool thing about that ribbed look in there. It hides some of that. This being as big and bulky as it is, you're not going to get the range that you want out of like Spider-Man and other figures. But it's a setup that doesn't break it up in there. Talking about articulation, like we saw a second ago, there's a ball at the top of the neck, there's a ball at the bottom of the neck, and then that is inside this cup that rocks back and forth. With all that, you get up, not quite down. I mean, that's a lot of armor to go through. Some shift forward and back, some shift side to side. And you know what that means? There is a little bit of tilt. Swivels around. Like we just saw, a hinge coming out to a cup that holds a ball joint for the shoulder. That comes forward. And yeah, that looks robot-y, that looks jointy. This shoulder pad, though, is on that arm. You can bring it up, hide all that, while still getting the motion. Very nicely done. Even when you don't know it's there, you bring the arm up, the shoulder pad just goes around, almost 90. Swivels around. Swivel at the bicep. Double elbow. Oh my God. Double elbow, get the shoulder pad out of the way, get everything out of the way. It comes up past 90. Ball joint in the hand, surprising amount of movement. Okay, can't stand it, gotta go back on. There's a mid-torso hinge. If you've messed with the Bandai model kits for Dragon Ball Z, that's where I've mostly seen that, but does hinge forward into a crunch. Can't quite see it up under there. But that means no back because the hinge only goes one way. Swivel at the waist. Jut over to here to this armor plate hanging down, and that is on a ball joint. It kind of gets out, but it more rotates forward and back. If you want to get it out of the way, it pops off. Do that. You shift around, you get it all, yep, it comes all the way up. Back, but like I said, this runs into here. Kind of shift it around. Oh, wait. Let's do this. Well, how about bringing it forward? Does it get any more? A little bit. That rotates there, and it also rotates at the knee. I feel like they could have cut more out of the armor behind the knee because it's just a single hinge, and it comes up to about right there. So there's no way in hell he's kicking his own ass. Okay, I already finished the review, but I'm going back because I noticed that these plates on the back of the knee, those are separate pieces. But I bent and then I pushed, and you can kind of see that goes down into the lower leg. Bring it back up and it pops up right there at the end, but not as high as it was. As is, I can't see down in there, see what's actually happening. But with that, The knee does get up to 90, so I'm going back adding this to the review. It may look weird, but had to throw that in. On the sides of the lower leg armor, there are these hinged discs to get out of the way of the foot. Not a whole lot. It goes in, it goes out, but it's enough to get out of the way of the foot, which I don't know all that's going on down here at this. It's on a hinge to give you some inside rocker, but there's a ball joint below that gives you some forward and a little bit of back, and then that adds to the rock too if you bring it down. Then there's this plate on a hinge that hides the toe joint, and the toe gives you, boop. For accessories, it comes with 2 fists, it comes with 2 relaxed hands or holding the weight of the weapon hands, and then 2 trigger finger hands. Here's where you're going to run into the elbow pad pop-off-a-rama. A little bit tight. The fists were on it in the package, so it's a little bit easier to pop off. These that weren't on it, ooh, tight. And the trigger finger hand, of course, holds this big honkin' gun. Nice sculpt. Really clean, though. I don't know. It's kind of cartoony, but at the same time, it's techie. It's sci-fi. There's a couple of different colors involved here, but the biggest standout is the gold on this winged whatever this sigil is. Red for the scope. It is a little bit light and hollow. It's not flimsy until you get right here. See how thin the grip is? It's a little bit... And I thought I broke this, but this does come out. So with this being a little bit thin, the hand being slightly tight, your first impulse is to do it like we usually do. You know, here, turn a little bit, shove down. That's not how you want to do it. Stretch this guy out. Get it here, turn into it, trigger finger, grip. Pop the other hand off, put the flat palm in this whole time. Notice where my finger is, holding that elbow pad on. And for being big and bulky, it gets into poses fairly nice. You're not gonna quite, well, where are we going with this? Oh, you can get close to aiming it. And then his other weapon is, a big honkin' knife. The grip and the guard is a matte black, but you get to the blade, there's some silver and then some of that same airbrushed shading look to it. Again, it's easier to just pop that way, turn into it. And that's just a good look. I may like the knife more than I like the gun. And with all this upper body articulation, hell, you can't do this with some smaller figures. Hey, is there a compass in the stock of that? And then finally, he comes with a backpack or a jump pack, a jet pack, whatever the hell this thing is. And here you can see what the actual base plastic blue looks like. It's amazing what all this shade work does for it. 3 pegs, and once you get this on here, it's almost too tough to get off. You have that same symbol on the back. You have the silver for these exhausts, whatever this is, and then the jetpack parts itself. Those are on swivels, so you can bring them up. I don't know the point of this. But having this pack on, it makes the figure feel even heavier, but not taller. The figure stands at about 6 3/4 inches tall. And here it is compared to the Star Wars Black Series Stormtrooper and the Marvel Legends Black Panther, 2 of the most well-known retail 6-inch-ish scale lines. And from comments I've seen, this armor should be about this tall in 1/12 scales. I can't tell you for sure, but it looks big and imposing in this environment. And I grabbed the Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure Ironmonger before opening this. Again, I had built it up in my brain. I had forgotten about it. And then here's the amazing Yamaguchi Bleeding Edge Iron Man. Here it is with the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Armored Superman and Hellbat, I think it's called. And just because G.I. Joe has not left the review space since I started getting them, here it is with the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Snake Eyes and Duke. It may be sacrilege to the Warhammer fans, but ooh, I'd like to see that with some Cobra symbols on it or something. So at the end of the day, it's not quite what I was expecting, but I do still like it despite that. I keep saying big and bulky, which brings its own problems when it comes to action figures, but Bandai has thrown a couple of things in to get around that. It's not perfect. You're not going to get Spider-Man-like poses out of this, but it gets a lot more poses than I thought it would. It is very agile, but still, it's meant to be a brute. I say that. I have no idea. But looking at it, you think, oh, it's just a tank. He just rolls into the battlefield, blasting away, eating up all the enemy fire, and just walking on through. At least that's how this is going to work on my shelf. Ooh, I love me a good-looking paint job. I love the golds, I love the blues, but I especially like the black airbrush type shading on here. It just does so much for the figure. And yes, the elbow pads will piss you smooth the hell off, but that can be easily fixed. I'm gonna glue those as soon as I turn this off. Is it a $100 action figure though? Maybe because of the price. and then seeing the box and completely forgetting about when I pre-ordered it, I was just like, nope, I'm not going to think about it till I get a shipping notice. I guess during that time, I built it up in my brain to be bigger, but it's not. I think if you are a Warhammer fan, McFarlane Toys showed off a nicely articulated one that may be bigger than this at Toy Fair, so I wouldn't go spending crazy money yet. Wait and see what that does, and if that's not up to par, then go back and hunt this thing down, because if I had a choice, I would probably save myself $80, especially if you're going to army build these. When McFarlane comes out with his, that's your army builder. But this is impressive from just looking at it on the shelf aspect, and then the engineering that went into it. So if you enjoyed the review, comment, like, subscribe. Much love to the plus. If you're interested in seeing videos early or just in a position to help out the channel, patreon.com. But wherever you may be watching this, I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.